Powerlifting meeting. This is the February 13th, 2025 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it in to us so that you may be recognized during the request to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. Mrs. Dippert, would you please take the roll? Call the roll.
Mr. McFarland.
Present.
Mr. Hawley.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Present.
Mrs. Albers.
Here.
Mr. Sykes.
Here.
Mr. Barcinas.
Yes.
Mrs. Douglas.
Here.
Mrs. Wilson.
Present.
Mrs. Goodman.
Here.
Okay. The next item up on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have items numbers 3.1 through 3.7. This is the agenda, excuse me, if my fingers work. This is a consent agenda as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? Seeing none, does anyone have any potential conflicts of interest on agenda item 3.3? Seeing none, I would this time take a motion to approve this consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? All in favor? Or may vote. Proceed to a vote. Thank you. Motion passes. Special recognition. Islander Powerlifting has had a successful year with both the boys and girls teams. Recently, the boys Islander Powerlifting earned a state championship from the 2025 Nebraska Raw State competition. The girls Islander Powerlifting earned state runner-up at the same state competition. Overall, they finished state with 16 individual medalists, 4 individual state champions, and 2 lifters of the meet. Congratulations, Islanders.
Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and present our powerlifters tonight. I just want to say during this busy time of the winter season, we got a ton of successes going on right now, and this is just one of them. And so Coach Doyle, Coach Olmstead have put in a ton of work with this group this year. We have over 90 kids this year in powerlifting and growing, and I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon, which is great. So Coach Olmstead, Coach Doyle, if you guys want to come up. Coach Olmstead, come on up. Yes, you too. You're part of this group. And I'll let them kind of talk about their successes and anything else that they got going on and basically their future, what they got going on the rest of the season.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Pat Doyle, head strength coach and head powerlifting coach. This is my 5th year, and hard to believe the first year we only had 5 kids that did powerlifting. And now we're up to just under 90, like he said. So I think our growth and success is pretty cool. We've never had a team state championship. We've had, actually Hunter and Giselle have both been previous state champions, and this is their 3rd year for 2 of them. And just the success that we've had overall with 16 medalists, like you talked about, and 10 out of these 20 kids are going to be going to nationals here in another month or so. And last year we only had 6. So we're growing in that aspect as well. So we'll get to go to Wisconsin this year, check out Lambeau Field, and then participate in some national powerlifting. So pretty excited with our growth and where we're at, and super proud of our kids and how hard they work.
I'm Coach Olmstead, the assistant powerlifting coach. I think we're just super proud of our kids and how hard they've been working. They've been putting in a lot of work this year, and it's been showing. And we have another state meet in a week and a half, so hopefully they do as well there.
So we'll have them come on up and get their certificates.
Could we ask a couple questions before the kids come up?
Absolutely. Nice. That's how we roll.
So no secret, I've said this last year, I've done some powerlifting meets. I understand the work that goes into preparing for a powerlifting meet. And one of the things that I love about it is that kids can do it all shapes and sizes. I mean, you can weigh 116 pounds and be a powerlifter. And I love that it just really encompasses so many different types of kids. And I love that there's a really good showing of young women out in there too. But could you just go over what powerlifting is, go over the different movements that are involved, maybe talk a little bit about the preparation that you do for a powerlifting meet and the judging, because it's an animal unto itself. It's really very different than other competitions you might go to, because it's kind of slow. It's slow until you start lifting, and then it goes really fast. It's not like a game where that's being played on a field. So could you just go over some of that for people that don't understand how it works?
Yeah, for sure. So similar to wrestling, there's different weight classes that kids qualify for. Like Jordan here is in our 97-pound female class, all the way up to Eric over there in our 275-pound male class. So the different shapes and sizes, literally for everybody. You compete in the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. You get 3 attempts at each of them. And then you add up your total, your best attempt out of each of those 3, and that becomes your total for the meet. And then you're competing against different kids in your weight class. And like you always tell, 1 pound is 1 pound. It's the same for everybody, whether you're a boy, girl, tall, short, heavy, skinny, doesn't matter. The weight is the same for everybody. And most of these kids have been preparing, because a lot of these kids, this is kind of their primary sport. They've been preparing since last year ended, and it's a full-time thing. And it's not like basketball where you have a game or 2 games every week. Most of these kids go to 3 or 4 meets a year, and that's it. So they prepare extremely hard, only to go and lift for 1 day, and then they train hard for another 3 to 6 weeks, and they do it all over again. So sometimes it's really hard to persevere and be committed to it full time, knowing that you might not get to do it again for another 6 weeks. Or in this case, they get done in March. It's all the way till November to where they do it again. So when we say our kids work really hard, they work extremely hard, and they train really hard throughout the entire year, not just during their season. And so I think, like you said, it is an animal of its own, and it takes a lot of commitment and dedication to it if you want to be good at it, just like anything else. But so I can answer your question. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions? Beautiful. Hey, so we'll go one by one here. We'll call you guys up, give you a certificate. You can shake the hand of Mr. Fisher and Mr. McFarland here, and we'll roll through it. Mr. Kane Alt. Beautiful. There you go. Uredi Shavira Matal. Mr. Hunter Christensen. Evelyn Fierro. J.C. Gilmore. Eric Guerrero. Matthew Hernandez. Giselle Lara. Andrew Larson. We got 2 brothers on the team, Alex Martin. And it's his birthday today, I forgot. And it's Coach Olmsted's birthday today too, by the way. And then James Martin. McKenna Mazonik. Faith Puente. Jaden So. Ooh.
Sorry, my bad.
No, you're good. Jordan Summers. Richard Vandara. And then we had 4 that couldn't make it because they had to work. We had Chris Cruz, Jorge Garcia, Gabby Smith, and Giovanna Velasquez Red Elk, who are all working. But so that's 20 lifters total. Like I said, 16 out of them placed. 4 state champs. We had 2 runner-up, I think, and a bunch of kids that placed, obviously, 3rd through 5th. So that is your Islander powerlifting team, state champions and state runner-ups this year.
Coaches, if you can come on up, and then we're gonna scooch in, get friendly with each other, and we're gonna get some pictures. All right? And then if there's any parents that wanna get photos, feel free. So, all right. Okay, everybody look at me and smile. All right? 1, 2, 3. All right, smile. All right. Yeah, hold it. We got more photos.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Congratulations, y'all.
Go ahead. Go ahead with your question. I got get
Mr. Ladwig, before you go anywhere, is there any outlook on powerlifting becoming a NSAA sport in the near future years?
In conversation with the NSA, that has not been really talked about. But I have a feeling that with the way things are going, it'll progress that way. I think, when we look at sports right now, I think girls sports, getting a state duels for girls would be the next push, because that's not a sanctioned NSA sport right now. And so I think eventually it'll get there, because it is becoming very, very popular here in Nebraska. But right now, that's not something that's been discussed with schools.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ms. Albers.
What are the opportunities for scholarships for powerlifting?
I'm going to refer, I hate to say it, but I'm going to refer back to Coach Doyle, because he's the master in that, in terms of scholarships for that.
There are some schools that have scholarships for it. Like, we have 4 kids that are powerlifting at Concordia University in Seward on scholarship right now. Midland University has it. There's a William Jewell down in Kansas City. So there are more schools that are getting it now. And actually, I'm a board member of the Nebraska Strength Coaches Organization, and we're in talks with Jeff Johnson, who works with the NSAA, trying to advocate for the NSAA adopting powerlifting as a sanctioned sport. So it hasn't been talked to the schools yet, but we're kind of in the works on trying to push that through to get funding and all that type of stuff too, because it does get expensive, equipment and things. But like Matthew here is going to go to Concordia next year to powerlift. He's one, and then obviously a couple of these other kids are extremely talented as well that'll hopefully get that opportunity here in the future as well.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Ladner.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Basketball game at 7 if anybody wants to attend here soon.
Item number 4.2, school board recognition. Mitch Rouse.
Good evening, board members. I wanted to take a moment on behalf of the district leadership team at GIPS and on behalf of our staff and students here to thank you all, board members, for the service that you give here to the district. You may or may not know that School Board Appreciation Week was at the beginning of the month. And so we wanted to recognize you in that capacity. We didn't have a meeting yet, so we're going to do it today. So on your desks, you have a thank you note with a couple of tokens as well. And then next week, we'll be delivered a larger item for you. You're all going to get some GIPS quarter zips as well as a token of appreciation for your service here. Again, just really grateful for y'all signing up for a free gig to serve. That's a really, at least for me, when I talk to folks in the community, that's always a big piece. This is a volunteer thing that you do, to be here, to dedicate the time and committees, to go to the events, to learn about the ins and outs of legislations and policies and budgets and all the things, to help make sure that the district has what it needs to support our teachers, to take care of our kids. So this is us on behalf of Grand Island Public Schools thanking you for your service, for what you do on behalf of all 10,000 of our students and 1,600 of our staff and the portions of the community that you represent. So thank you for everything that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mitch. Item number 5, request to address the board. Each person addressing the board will be allowed 5 minutes. The Board of Education has the prerogative to limit speaking to 3 minutes when there are 3 or more patrons to allow speakers an opportunity to address the board in a timely manner. We allocate up to 30 minutes for addressing the board at each regular board meeting. Please face the board, not the audience, when you speak. We want to hear what is being said, so we ask the audience to refrain from making comments or sounds that make it hard to hear the speaker. No signs are allowed in the boardroom. We will not engage in dialogue with patrons presenting to the board. The purpose of the request to address the board is to listen to the patrons. The board president and superintendent will identify staff to follow up on information requested from patrons when necessary. At regular business meetings, any school district-related matter can be presented to the board, but only agenda items can be acted on upon a given meeting. At special meetings, comments will be limited to the subject of action items on the meeting's agenda. Speakers will not be permitted to make defamatory comments or use abusive or vulgar language. Expressions of personal complaints about staff or students are discouraged at public meetings. Concerns about individuals should be brought to the attention of the appropriate administrative authority. Specific building or program concerns should be brought to the attention of the building principal or program supervisor. We do have one speaker tonight. It is Mr. Darren Wyatt. Mr. Wyatt. The microphone is yours.
Board members, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. What I'd like to talk to you about tonight could come across as negative, but I want to present it in a very positive way. I want to thank the coaches of the football team that have worked with my son over the years. They've played an incredibly supportive role and helped him learn and be a better football player and things like that. And so I can't express my appreciation more than that. I would also like to express my appreciation for Coach Reed, who was hired and was let go, as we all know, because my son also developed a very good relationship with him. And I want to get that out there to you, to the board members, to let you know that my son loved him as a head coach and got to know him. Unfortunately, we've had 2 years where we lost Coach Tomlin after 21 years, and then we move into another situation where we're having to have a new head coach that's gonna come in shortly. This last season has been a struggle. And yet I saw all the players persevere and push through it, and had some success at the end, which was just an outstanding thing to see. One of the things I saw in sort of in an analogy I want to share, and I don't want to come across as preachy, but maybe a bit of a cautionary tale I'd like to share. It seemed to me that as the season went on, it was sort of like a family that was going through a divorce. It seemed to me that the loyalties with different sides of the coaching staff were a bit divided at times. And I think that from what I saw, sometimes it felt like that what the highest priority should have been was the kids, maybe got lost in some of the internal strife that I think was going on. I think my son felt torn. He wanted to support the old coaches and those that came in that were new. I kind of saw him go from his sophomore year moving into his junior year. The sort of the excitement and light in his eyes kind of died as the year went on. And that's concerning as a parent. I chose not to say anything in detail to anybody at that point in time because I've coached at lower levels, and I understand that nobody wants an angry parent coming after you and things like that. I did talk after the season in that, but maybe I should have said something before that. I just want to always make sure moving forward that the kids' best interests are always put forward. And I think most of the time they are, but I think sometimes as adults we can forget that when we're having struggles and trying to make things happen. And again, I can say nothing good, nothing bad about my son's time at Gish and up through his junior year, and it's been great. And it's, you know, met wonderful people, wonderful coaches, and even though this happened, you know, he loves them, I respect them, things like that. I just wish it could have been different. So, thank you for your time and attention, and I didn't want to be kind of a downer because of that powerlifting team. That was outstanding. They were it's an incredibly great program, and those are some great kids. So I want to end it on that. Congrats, powerlifting team. So thank you all.
Thank you. One person, okay. I can't read that name. Okay, I guess we do have, what's that? Yolanda? Yolanda, if you would like to approach the microphone, please.
Actually, do I have to speak at this time, or can I speak as a part of the discussion under the item?
Actually, the only time you can speak is is right now. The only time you can speak is now.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to just take just a minute of your time. I'm here because of the next agenda item, which is the preparation of the school system in keeping our children safe if anything were to happen involving ICE in Grand Island. Excuse me. First of all, I want to commend the district for the steps that you've taken, the action, the plan that you've put together to keep our children safe and to make sure that kids can come to school and know that they're in a safe environment, and parents can send their children to school, excuse me, knowing that the district, the principals, the teachers will do everything possible to keep their children safe. And so as a parent, as a grandparent, I appreciate that. Excuse me, as a member of the Latino community, I really do appreciate that because unfortunately it affects many of our children, or it could affect many of our children. I've seen the plan, and I see that some good things people are prepared for what could possibly happen. The one concern that I do have is that, excuse me, in speaking with some of the paras in the district, it seems like I'm not really sure if what the effort has been to communicate with parents. It seems to me that I taught, I'm a retired teacher, and I worked at several schools here in Grand Island in addition to, I was an administrator in another community. But I think that the people that are in our buildings that have considerable contact with families and with parents are our para-educators. And I know that Grand Island has done a really good job. And again, I commend the district for that, of having paras that are bilingual, trilingual, and are able to communicate with parents and with families. And I just want to make sure that, I just want to find out what kind of efforts the district is making in having those paras communicate the information that the plans that the district has developed, and sharing that information with parents and families. Again, I believe that the paras have probably more contact with parents and families than other members of the staff, including teachers, although I know that your teachers have considerable contact with parents, but I really do believe that the parents are the most valuable in this case, because in most cases, most of your parents are bilingual in one language or another. And I just think it would be really good to make sure that parents are up to date on what's going on in their buildings, that they're not just receiving bits and pieces of information, but that they're receiving adequate information that they're able to share with parents and families, so that the parents and families can be reassured from somebody that they really trust in the schools, and knowing in their language, excuse me, so that they are aware of what's going on to keep their kids safe. I know that just within this room, there are a small number of people that were involved with the district, the last raid that happened, and I know that the procedures and the way the raids these events are taking place this time are much different than they were the last time. They are not having the site raids like they've done in the past that affect everybody all at one time. They are doing targeted events where they pick up specific people, but the unfortunate part of that is that in their efforts to detain specific people, anybody who's in the connection with that specific individual is subject to being detained as well. So it's being held in different ways across the country, is my understanding, and people will be affected in different ways. Again, my purpose for being here is just to listen to what your conversation is, your discussion is on this topic, and then to ask you to please make sure that your paras in your buildings are able to have sufficient contact with parents and families so that they can share the information that I know you as a district and with your buildings want to make sure parents have. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 6.1, review of GIPS safety plan for deportation event. Mr. Matt Fisher.
Well, unfortunately, Lee Jacobson, our Director of Safety, who probably would be the most versed in this, was scheduled to be on vacation this week, so he is not available tonight. And then Dr. Stevens, who would probably be the next person that's most versed in this, unfortunately had to go home sick today. So now you're stuck with me. So we'll walk through the plan, and really the intent in going through the plan here is to make sure that the board has a good understanding of what is involved in this plan that's been developed, and then also to make sure to take advantage of this opportunity to share with our community the planning that has gone into this. And so we're not going to go through the plan, not all 15 pages of the plan. We're not going to walk through that. We picked out some things that we feel are very pertinent to what the public needs to know, and certainly anyone that wants to review the plan is welcome to do so. The plan has been shared with all of the board members. It's been shared with our staff, and so I think everyone that from the school side that needs the plan certainly has it. I guess if there are others outside of the school district who would like to look at the plan, it's certainly available for those people that would like that as well. So let's take a quick look at how this plan came about. Actually, the planning that went into this began back in August. There was a sense that maybe we needed to do some updating in our emergency protocols around this particular event. And so at that time, we had some reviews done, and that pointed out the fact that many of our migrant families didn't have emergency contacts listed in our student information system. And so that was one of the key points that we started thinking about. If a deportation situation came about, that was certainly one of the things from the school side that we really needed to address. And then as we started working through that, we really felt like there needed to be as much collaboration as possible with other agencies in the community that would be able to provide support for families in these kind of situations. So that's really where everything started, was identifying that need to do something, and then starting to work collaboratively with those other agencies in the community. Yep, that didn't work. And here's just a list of the collaborating partners that were involved as this got underway. Certainly the people from our Welcome Center, and then also the people that work in our federal programs department were included. Our district safety department, the district associate superintendent, Dr. Stevens, and all the work that she does around student services certainly fit into this area. The district crisis response team was included. The communications office was included. And then we brought in the Multicultural Coalition of Grand Island as a partner in this work. We worked with Grand Island Police Department, the Nebraska State Patrol, and also Federal Immigration Enforcement Agency. So those were all people that were a part of the collaborative that worked through this planning process. And again, I think as you look at that group, you see pretty broad representation from different agencies in our community that definitely would be involved in working with our migrants. And so hopefully bringing those people together gave us the opportunity to put together a plan that was reflective of not only our needs, but the needs and the purposes of those other agencies. The structure of the plan really is built on our pre-existing emergency protocols. We've got an extensive emergency response manual that has protocols for all different kinds of emergencies, everything from fire to tornado to, a bomb threat, any of those kind of things that might normally be considered a part of, emergency planning. We have all those, and we have tried to have a fairly consistent protocol throughout that manual. And when we worked on this plan, again, we tried to use the protocols that made sense from the other areas that we worked to include in this plan as well. Then as you say, once those stakeholder meetings started happening, some of the protocols were streamlined to better align with the needs. And ultimately that plan became an appendix in our emergency operations plan. So that was kind of the process of building the plan, getting things put together. Now, getting into more of the nuts and bolts of how the plan works. Again, in that preparation phase, and that's probably, we're somewhat in the preparation phase, although we've been through all of these things. And we're probably at that point now where we are, ready for any kind of an event that would happen. But starting out there, developing common communication for stakeholders. Again, by meeting with those other agencies, we've developed a common language so that when we're talking about things, later on when you get down there and talk about the Be Prepared orange folder, every one of those agencies that we worked with know what the Be Prepared orange folder is. And so again, just trying to have that common language and a common thought process around how different agencies would communicate. I think that was one of the ideas that went into that preparation. Non-mandatory vector training for staff and administration, covering duties, FERPA, and policy. So vector training, that's something that all of our employees are familiar with. We do mandatory trainings that have to happen with our staff every year. And so all of our staff are familiar with those vector trainings. And what Lee Jacobson did was put together trainings around the plan, around the FERPA requirements, and then around our policy 8460, which is board policy that really addresses how students could be interviewed and some of those different pieces that would be certainly a part of what we want to make sure that our employees are familiar with. And Ms. Nuncio's question about our paras, certainly we have tried to share out with our paras. To her point, maybe that's one of those areas that we do want to make sure and revisit to make sure that our para-educators, because certainly they are a group that is connected and probably has a high level of trust. And so I think that that's probably an area we do want to make sure that we have addressed. They have got the information. All of the communications that we've done with staff have gone to all of our staff members. So they've been in the loop on this, but again, making sure that they've, that they see their important role in this process, I think is probably something good for us to do. Distributing the Be Prepared Orange folder. The Be Prepared Orange folder is something that the Multicultural Coalition has put together. Basically just has information for families in terms of legal aid and some of the different pieces that might be important if there was a deportation event that took place. And so we have those Be Prepared Orange folders available at each of our schools. So people can pick them up there. Obviously, they can go to the Multicultural Coalition and get that same information there. But we felt like an important part of what we can do is to make sure that we refer families that have questions to the people that really can get them help in those different areas. Assisting families in setting up the emergency caregivers in our Synergy, our student information system. Again, going back to that first piece where we talked about that being one of the areas that we identified, we really needed to make sure that if something would happen, that we knew who to get a hold of if parents weren't available all of a sudden. And so that's something that we've really tried to work with families on getting those emergency contacts in place. And then again, that last bullet does talk about referring families to the Multicultural Coalition. So those are the things that we've really tried to focus on during this preparation phase. Event response phase, this would be an area that we hopefully will never have to use. But again, these are the key pieces that we have in place and that we've stressed to our staff. Enforcement agencies coordinating through the safety department. So if a situation would happen where an enforcement agency wanted to have access to students or student records, they will be referred to our safety department. They would, not go through the school. They would be going directly through our safety department. And again, there are certainly some legal ramifications before any student or any student records can be released. And there has to be a court order signed by a judge in order for those things to happen. And so that would be something that our safety department, Lee Jacobson, and then he would consult with our attorney to make sure that all the documentation was the proper documentation before we would do anything in terms of releasing any students or any records. And again, that's a FERPA obligation that we have. That's not something that we get to pick and choose on. So So that is, you know, the one thing that would have to happen right away is, you know, that everything would flow through our safety department, who's certainly going to be better versed in this area than the principals in a building would be. And so we felt like that was an important piece. The second bullet point, contacting DHHS 45 minutes after dismissal for uncollected students. So if we had a situation where, you know, something happened in the community, and a student, we get to the end of the day and no one comes to pick up that student. After 45 minutes, DHHS is going to be contacted. So we would be reaching out to them to say, we have a student that hasn't been picked up. You know, what services can you provide for this student at this time? And so that would be the protocol that we would follow in those situations. And then that last bullet point would say that, you know, in a situation where DHHS can't place a student, they're unable to get in contact with parents, there are no emergency contacts for us to follow up with. We've actually had staff members volunteer to be 48-hour placement sites for those students. So ahead of time, we've had staff members who have volunteered to do this, filled out all the paperwork required for this, and so that if some situation would happen where we were in that unfortunate event that we didn't have a place to go with those students, then we would be able to place them with staff members. So that's basically the other bullet points there. Nutrition services for meals. Certainly we've communicated out with families and then also made sure that those staff members know that those students would be able to continue to receive free breakfasts, free lunches, and then, you know, certainly our social workers from each of our buildings will be involved in going through any assistance that was needed with those students. Post-event support. In the case that we had an event and we knew that there were families that were impacted by it, we will activate our crises team and make sure that we set up safe spaces and offer wellness counseling as needed. Our building counselors and social workers will obviously be a key point of contact for students or families who are needing support. Our focus of communication on maintaining normalcy. That's really going to be, and we've stressed that throughout all of the communications that we've put out to this point, is how important it is to have that sense of normalcy, you know, for all of our students. You know, obviously there are students that are going to be directly impacted if something like this would happen, but it will have an impact on all of our students. And so we really need to maintain as much of a normal environment as possible. And we want to make sure that all of our students and our families know that schools are a safe space where familiar routines are going to happen and that sense of normalcy is going to exist. So, key takeaways. First of all, GIPS is prepared to assist families in setting up emergency caregiver plans. Collaboration ensures efficient and compassionate responses, and schools are committed to safety, support, and maintaining normalcy. So hopefully as we went through that, those are the things that you get a sense for. We are prepared. We want to support our families and our students in every way possible. And you know, we want to make sure that we maintain a safe, normal environment for all of our students. So that is the overview of what we have put into our plan. Obviously, like I said, that doesn't cover the nuts and bolts of the plan, but I think it does cover what you know, what we want to make sure that the board understands and that our community understands about where we are. Questions?
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you for going over some of that. I guess my first question is, has there been a decrease in attendance across the school district? And if so, how is the district going about reaching out to families and parents to let them know that the school district is safe and a welcoming place?
Well, I think, you know, I don't know when the initial is, but there was a time when we did have some students that, you know, didn't come for several days, and we did reach out to the families and see, you know, what was going on, provide reassurance. You know, we had a national day of, you know, immigrant recognition, I think, when immigrants stayed home, and you know, we did have a number of students that did not come to school on that day. You know, we had a support walkout at the high school earlier this week. Again, just a peaceful walkout to show their support for, you know, immigrant families. And other than that, you know, it's a little hard to judge because we've had so much sickness going on. But I think for the most part, I think as I've had conversations with our building leaders and teachers across the district, I think most of them don't necessarily feel like they've seen a big drop off. We had a situation where we had students that were being transported, some of our newcomers that were being transported from CPI to the high school, and somewhere the rumor had started that they wouldn't be safe on the bus. So we had a day when the students didn't ride the bus, and then we again had to reach out and reassure people that, you know, the bus is really an extension of our school, and all of the things that are in place to protect students within the school are in place on that bus. So again, I think, you know, it's, like I said, it's a little hard to judge overall because we've had so much sickness, but I do think the sense that I've got from talking with people across the district is that we've had, you know, the majority of our people in the buildings, and I think that where we've needed to provide reassurance about it being a safe place to be, I think we've done that.
So I guess to clarify, like you mentioned the school bus kind of incident. Could you speak more to that? Like, are federal like agents or like federal officials, whether they're police officers, sheriff, are they allowed to board any school bus? What are the procedures put in place for that type of activity?
In order to board a bus, they would need to have some kind of probable cause, or they would have to have gone through our safety people with the proper subpoena or warrant that was judge signed in order to access someone on a bus.
Okay.
So again, same as it would be in a school building.
Yeah.
And I think the reality, and Lee Jacobson talked about this the other day, that actually if someone stops a bus, a law enforcement officer would stop a bus, you're actually more protected on that bus from any kind of searches or seizures than you would be in a personal vehicle, because the driver of a personal vehicle could give a law enforcement officer the permission to search the vehicle. The driver of a bus can't do that. And so that was a point that he'd made, I know, when he was sharing this information with another group.
Awesome, thank you. I guess another question, and then I could leave it for other board members. For example, if there was like an ICE agent or a federal official like that shows up at the school, can you walk through kind of some of those procedures a little bit more? And then also, if they were to request student records or anything like that, does the school district, do they have any right in providing those records, or you could speak to more of that?
Well, that's where, if that would happen, if they would show up at a building, then our building leaders would direct them to meet with our safety officials, Lee Jacobson, and then they would have to present whatever documentation that they had that they felt like gave them access to a student or student information. So they would present that to him. He would then check with our legal representative to make sure that everything was in order. And if it was a judge-issued subpoena or warrant, then we are obligated to provide access to either the student or the records. But only in those cases, and really FERPA would prevent us from giving that access unless we had that signed. And there's different kinds of subpoenas and warrants that can be issued. It has to be a judge-signed subpoena or warrant in order for us to be able to give access.
And what is FERPA?
You would ask. Basically, I'm not even going to try to get the initials right. FERPA is basically the federal law that protects individuals' information.
It's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act.
There you go.
Question.
There you go. Other questions?
Mr. Hawley.
Following up on Eric's questions, so, and you were clear in that should a law enforcement officer show up at the school, there's different types of warrants, right? There's an ICE warrant, but then there's a federal warrant. And a federal warrant's going to supersede an ICE warrant, and there are certain things we do and don't have to do with both of them. Under FERPA, if we look at our student handbook policy 8750, parents have the right to opt out of the disclosure of directory information.
Mm-hmm.
Under FERPA, let's say somebody did come to the school and ask, we can give that information, but we don't have to, and the only information we can give is directory information, and can we still opt out of that if the parents have opted out of it, even with a federal warrant? Or is that too legal of a question to answer?
Well, it's pretty legal.
I thought so.
Here would be my, not being a legal expert,
I won't hold you to it.
response to that. So the registry information, people can opt out of it. If someone came, and registry information is basically, we share that with military recruiters, colleges, that's basically, to some extent, public information. It's very limited as far as what's provided there, but it certainly has, a public component to it. Those people that opt out of it, then obviously we're not sharing that information with anyone. So going to the situation where someone comes asking for that, if it was a law enforcement agency and they asked for registry information, we would provide that. We wouldn't provide anyone that had opted out of its information. Federal warrant, if it is a judge-signed federal warrant, then we would have to provide whatever information they ask for. Whether that's, address information, whether it's school records, whatever. I mean, whatever the warrant indicated that they were to be given access to, in that case, we would be obligated to give access. In that case, the warrant supersedes the FERPA rights.
Okay. And following up on that, like I said, I appreciate your answer. I kind of put you on the spot with a crappy question because it was very legal. Going forward, like you said, should somebody show up in one of our schools, they're going to be directed to our district safety team. Is that going to be an every time thing? Should this happen over and over? Because we're not going to get comfortable in making these decisions, right? We're going to defer to them and then each time defer to our lawyer to make sure that we're in compliance. Does that sound correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
I was just wondering, is there any, if an event was to take place, is there any chance that an SRO would have anything to do with that? I feel like that could create extra friction in the future between SROs and students.
Again, It's hard to say what the situation would be. Could an SRO be involved? They might be. They might be because they are part of the Grand Island Police Department. So if the Grand Island Police were, compelled to be a part of whatever was going on, then the SRO could be a part of it. In most situations like this, I don't think that the Grand Island Police are going to be involved, which probably means our SROs wouldn't necessarily be involved. Again, depending on the situation, we might ask the SRO. I mean, if it ended up being a situation where there was a warrant and we had to allow an interview of a student, we might ask the SRO to sit in as our representative in that meeting. Again, because they're going to have a little more of a legal understanding than most of the people that are in our buildings would have. So more than likely, probably our safety people would be there. But if for some reason that didn't happen, an SRO could be a part of it. But as far as SROs being a part of some enforcement piece, probably not. I would hope not. Because again, I think when you look at the SRO program and the intent of the SRO program, a big part of that is building relationships between students and law enforcement.
Ms. Albers.
So we're a public school system. We take all kids. We never ask status, what their immigration status is. We don't ask a child to tell us what their status is of their parents or people that are living in their home.
We do not.
Yeah, so even if someone would have access to FERPA, they would not have access to that information because we don't ask that information.
No, that's not a part of any records that we're keeping.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hawley.
One last question. It's probably easier. Should something happen and we have teachers who volunteer to take like a 48-hour hold on our students who don't have a place to go, what happens after the 48-hour hold? Are they turned over to DHHS for placement, or do you know?
Again, that process started with DHHS because initially DHHS would be called in after 45 minutes. And the only time that the staff member would end up with the student staying with them would be as if DHHS had no other placement. So after 48 hours, then DHHS would certainly be involved, and it might not be 48 hours. It might be after a day, then they've got a placement, or they've found some family that we can place the student with. Or after 48 hours, they may still need a placement, and we may be back with that staff member asking if they can keep them for an additional 48 hours.
Thanks for the clarification.
Ms. Albers.
So you had mentioned that some of the staff had filled out paperwork. Was that paperwork through DHHS, or what was that paperwork through?
It was some that we developed with our attorney.
Oh, okay. I have had some community members contact me about being willing to take in kids if they would need somewhere to go, and I wasn't sure where to refer them. So maybe DHHS. Anybody know?
Well, DHHS would probably be, because basically they would become unaccompanied minors. And so DHHS is who's going to deal with unaccompanied minors if, obviously we can't track down family or they haven't given us an emergency contact that we can get a hold of.
Mr. Barstonis.
Thank you, and I think this is such a complex issue, and it's crazy and sad that our national leadership has put school districts and communities in this situation. And I think just because we'll see what comes out once news go out, and it's easy for social media participants to have their own opinion. But I think the message that we want to put out there today, I've been in those meetings with you, with Mr. Jacobson. The reality is that we have a plan, and we have a really good plan to keep students safe, families safe. It's our district, it's our community. That's the message that I know we've heard over and over and over. And just for context, just because it's such a complex issue, for some that might listen to our comments today. And this is not we're protecting undocumented families and we are against a process and a protocol, and it has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with the simplicity that we have students that might be affected by this. I think we've done such a great job at making sure that parents know that they have their contact information, right? For our immigrant families, but also for all of our families, because we can have law enforcement show up not just for an immigrant situation, but it could be for if you are a born citizen. So there's so many different things that could happen, right? So we're talking a lot of what if worst case scenario would happen, but we have a process where it wouldn't be they show up, they came in, took a student, and we don't know what happened. We actually have a process that stops and delays and makes sure that if a family is going to be affected, we are going to protect their families. As Ms. Nuncio mentioned, I think I've been now here in the U.S. and I've been through, I was part during the raids in Grand Island, O'Neill, and other places that have impacted our community, being an immigrant myself. Just being ready, the work that community members have done from the Multicultural Coalition, from our paras, from the conversations at the community level of just be prepared. I just want to, it's not necessarily something new. It's something that we have been promoting. If you're an immigrant, you just have to be ready just in case. One of the conversations that I would like to throw out there to kind of dispel and that I think is crucial is that for the most part, I think if we were to sit down and have a robust conversation about the executive order, we most agree that we want to protect the country of the U.S., we want to protect our country, we want to get tag and target criminals. I think we all understand that, and we could start there and have 100% of agreement on that, right? But one of the things that gets confusing, and I think that's the concern that Ms. Nuncio have, that many of us have in our community, is that in the immigration process, there is no such line as getting line and it'll happen. It's just a complex process. And it depends what country you're coming from, how you came in, how long it's very complex. So even in this concept of getting in line to have your paperwork, unfortunately with this administration, there is some things that have changed in the immigration process that even if you were in the process of getting something, it has now been taken away. So in the simplest of terms, now you have become an immigrant that was in line to get something. Now you are a criminal because now there is no process that you used to have. So the concern is, as we might not see rates like we've seen them in the past. But one of the concerns that we might have, or that we have, is that, if we do have an undocumented family that do we think ICE or law enforcement is going to target out of nowhere? Sometimes it happens, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. But we know of cases where, we came in, ICE came in to pick somebody up that had a deportation letter, and there were 2 or 3 people there that were immigrants, and they were taken as well, even though they had the right documentation, right? So we might see some of those things where it's going to affect our families. So I guess I just wanted to make sure to put out to our community that we're doing this just for the safety of our children, and it's not just because it's our immigrant children. We will do it for any of our students because that's what we need to do. There's a process, and we're going to do our best to keep them safe. The conversation of the undocumented versus documented, we don't ask that. Is there out there? I'm sure it's a reality we have to face. We have to have that conversation. But just because of how intricate the process is right now and what we're going as a nation, one of the concerns that I have as a parent, as a board member, as a community member, is that there's just some things that have been taken away that not everybody is or not those that there are some people that now are classified as criminals when they were in a process. So it's a very complex issue. So thank you to all the community members, because I know there's been a lot of conversations in the immigrant community and the advocate community about how do we best respond. A little bit to your question, Owen, I think law enforcement, when it comes to GIPD and Hall County, there are some obviously protocols that follow federal law, right? But right now, it's not their role. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen from GIPD in other years. It's not their role to target ICE. That's not their job. Their main concern is to keep our families safe. Same GIPD, Hall County. So the message that we'll give out there is to any community member is just stay within the frame of the law. Keep bringing your kids to school. Reach out to your parents, reach out to your teachers, reach out to any of us if there are any other concerns. It took way too long, but thank you for the plan that it's in place.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. I just had one quick last question. You said that it was not mandatory, the vector training. Could you speak onto more of that? Because I know in the plan, it said that there was training for staff and supporting staff, like paras, and then there was some for admin and principals. You talk a little bit more about those distinctions, and I'm assuming that it's not as mandatory for staff, but what is that reason? And is it mandatory for like secretaries and principals and admin?
We really stress to principals and secretaries to go through that vector training, and it's that training and how it differs from the other staff training really is. It goes through the step-by-step process that if someone comes to the building or if an event happens, here are the steps that you would follow. And so we stressed having them go through the vector training. We also gave them a checklist that they all have in hand that walks them through the step by step. Okay, here's what you do in this event.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have any other questions other than I just wanted to reiterate kind of like what Carlos was just mentioning, that really thank you, Yolanda, for coming here and speak, and to some of the other community members that we're in contact with. Just a little precursor, I work with Nebraska Appleseed right during my full time, and we're like knee deep, probably whole body deep into like the river or something, in a lot of this dilemma issue, uncertainty that's happening not only in our community but across the state and across the nation. And I just want to let the board members here know that this issue, although we ourselves are not living it, although that you are not living it, there are people in our community that are suffering, that are scared, and like this is a real world issue. You might take to heart a lot of this, or you might just like look over it, but I'd really encourage just people here on the board, let's try and have some proximity to our neighbors, to people that you don't know, because honestly, there are so many people in this community that identify with either being undocumented, having some type of documentation status, but I think it's pertinent that this school board is uber supportive of all of our community members, all of our students, and I hope those board members that are here present and maybe not present, that we take this to really heart, because at the end of the day, these are hardworking parents, mothers, fathers who love their children just as much as you do. So I just wanted to leave it at that and just really thank the district and Mr. Fisher for doing this plan, and for all of the staff members that are here and present. Your work does not go unnoticed, and just want to show appreciation for all of you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions at this time, we'll move on to item number 6.2, the 2025-2026 staffing plan.
Well, good evening. Dr. Kohler's unavailable. She has that illness as well, so you get me tonight. Hopefully I'll be able to answer most of these questions for you. I may need a little help on some of these as well. So this is the staffing plan. I know this has been in the works for a little bit of time here in the last couple months with the administration, all the buildings, also from the district admin team. So there's a lot that goes into this. Mr. Harden as well is a major part of it. So again, they keep the mission. The vision is very in line with all the staffing requests and as they make these staffing decisions. So what the plan prioritizes, the plan prioritizes adding a minimum of 4 sections. And for example, at the elementary school, so an example I'm going to give is Dodge has 4 third grade classes right now. They're moving up to 4th grade. They have three teachers at 4th grade. So we're going to have to either shift, or as another group comes in, we'll have to add a position. So we want to make sure class sizes stay at a decent level. And they don't top those things, and also, make sure we have those coverage. Some of that will come down the road as registration hits. As you all know, there's always changes there. There's some unknowns, especially at the elementary world, especially at the kindergarten level. Safety is always big. You'll see a crossing guard position there. That's not a major hit, but that's still an important one. The high school, one thing they're prioritizing this year is academic support coaches. It's something they have not had in the past. They are prioritizing those 2 positions that will help teachers, which in turn impacts student learning. And so giving that support for our teachers at the high school that we haven't done in the past. We also look at previous positions due to staffing shortages. So we look at some different things there. The academic support coach at elementary. There's a couple special education positions. Again, special education positions are a little different. We're reimbursed on the backside, I believe at 80%. So those somewhat, I guess Mr. Harden probably wouldn't say they are paid for through that, but they are on the backside. And we're looking for an English learner specialist and EL teachers as well, due to our numbers and where they're at. And the last one is an L4L coordinator. Here's kind of the breakdown. When you look at these, the teacher's more of a to be determined. That will depend on class sizes. Like I said, with those kindergarten classes coming in, there's always some mixing, some moving. Nothing ever balances out perfectly. Most of you know that just from your own kids going through buildings. Crossing guard, paras. The academic support coach is 3.4. There's 2 at Gish, 1 at Dodge, and a part-time 1 to be determined. Positive support coach, again, that position, and the special ed supervisor, those fall under special education numbers. So those would be reimbursed at 80%. The English learner specialist, the L4L coordinator, and the EL director, it's a 0.33 position as well. As we look at all these positions, our number 1 focus is on classroom support. And we want to make sure our classroom teachers, we have those classes covered. Hopefully we're able to do that so we can add these positions, but we're not going to add these at the expense of classroom positions. That's still the number 1 factor of student learning is the classroom teacher. That hasn't changed. It's never going to change. And so we got to keep those positions there. So that's what the plan takes into consideration. Even with an anticipated increase in our retention rates, there's still a staffing shortage, and that may impact the plan. We hope it doesn't, but we all know that some of these positions will be contingent on making sure we find suitable replacement in the classroom. And again, classroom teachers are our number 1 priority, and we will not budge on that. So I went through it fairly quick. I know most of you have seen this. This isn't something new. Does anybody need me to go back to anything?
I think we're good.
Otherwise, any questions anyone has, comments?
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. This is an action item tonight, right?
I believe so,
Yeah.
yes.
Could you speak to just why it's an info item and an action item in one go, and just the urgency that we need to get this through?
Yeah, the process is, as we come back in January, we get staffing requests and gather all that information, Dr. Kohler does, and then sorting through some of that information on what's the highest priorities. Usually there's obviously we can't fund everything, we know that, so we have to prioritize what's there. The reason to do both tonight, If we wait another month, it's hiring season's major right now. It has been going on. I'm doing college visits, have been for about the last 3 weeks. They end the end of the month. And with contracts coming back due in March 15th in our district and most districts across the state, we need to do this all tonight so we can start posting positions and start filling those positions. Every day we wait, it's a chance we don't get that position filled. And that's just the reality of it in today's day and age, unfortunately.
Mr. Hawley.
Might be more of a Virgil question, but it looks like 1.4 million add. Part of that's going to be reimbursed at 80%, and part of that's repurposing positions that we've had open.
Correct.
Do we know what the net add is to the budget for this? You looked comfy back there, so I figured I'd make you come up here and talk to us. Didn't want you to stay back. That's where the sick people are.
You'll get enough of me later on, but I can't give you precise just because there's so many moving parts. But roughly about $900,000 is what I would expect would be an actual new dollar if every position's filled and nothing else changes, kind of thing. I think the net impact of the general fund budget would be a $900,000 increase. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Court.
I think I'm next.
We got another one? Okay. GIPS Educator Fellowship, Mr.
You
Brian
get double
Court.
of me tonight. All right, there you go. So this is a program, as you guys know, we have the Path Back program for our high school seniors. By the way, both of them are going to come back and teach for us next year. So that's the first time we're 2 for 2. So that's a great thing. We also have the Central Nebraska Teach program. Obviously, we have our education pathway at the high school. But one of the things we really looked at is what's the best way to grow our own and what are the challenges to that? So we spent quite a little bit of time, Dr. Kohler, myself, there's been a team of us. We've worked with the Omaha West Side Public Schools on their program that they have with Midland University, their partnership. They have their first people back teaching this year. And we spent a day with them this summer really to develop this plan and of what we need to help kind of grow our own at this time of a teacher shortage. So here's the things we kind of have in place right now. These are things we do to kind of grow our own, support our own. You know, the student teacher stipend's one in there. This semester we've gotten the most student teachers since I've been here. I think there's 14 of them. I believe we've hired 8 or 9, so hopefully hire a couple more. So the stipends helped draw those people, so thank you for that. The apprentice teacher, obviously our ed pathway, and we hope that becomes even stronger and stronger and leads into this program as well. We've been doing Central Nebraska Teach, and that's a partnership with Wayne State, and that program's been good, and our numbers within that program is not as much because we don't have as much funding. And the people that we look for in the programs, the challenges they have are time and money. And and we have some people that be great teachers in our buildings, and we all know that. All building administrators say, "Oh, I've got one, this person," but they're single mom with 3 kids, or they have, it's just hard, and they don't have time and they don't have money. So how can we help get them to that finish line? So here's a little bit about the Central Nebraska Teach program. It's an accelerated teacher certification program, and Wayne State does it kind of do it as a combo online and hybrid. Tuition fees are about $7,000 a year, so it's a 3-year program. And we've helped them supply a little bit of funding, but very little with that program. And this one we've kind of changed, and partially just due to the numbers and trying to how do we get more people involved in it. And so here's just some details. I will tell you in 24-25 there was 600 and some vacant positions in the state of Nebraska, which is we're heading in the right direction. But I will tell you the numbers aren't there in the colleges. They're not growing yet. So that impact's still there. And we still have the rule of 85 in, where teachers can retire in earlier, at 55. So With us averaging over 90 a year, how do we, keep our people? How can we grow our own? And this is one of our solutions we have as we look into this. So as we focus on our own teacher shortage, I think if you look at the second bullet, first of all, we have great people, like I said, in our buildings that are from our community, are in our community. Their kids go to school here in GIPS. How can we help them become classroom teachers? How can we take away a couple of those challenges they have? And so this is what we're looking for. They know our kids, they know our families, they know our schools, they support them, they go to our activities, their kids are involved. And those are the people we want because they are going to stay here in GIPS. And if we can help them get to that finish line, we can hopefully help them get there in that bachelor's degree. Now, the second to last bullet, because there's some money behind this. And one of the things we'll ask for their commitment is they give us a minimum 5 years if they're in this program. So when they're done, they'll student teach here. I'll kind of talk you through the steps of it, but when they're done, they will come back and teach for us, and they will have to give us 5 years. If not, they'll have to pay back some of the money that we've paid on their college tuition during that time. We don't think that's going to be an issue, but there could be a situation that pops up where somebody's moving or something happens that they're not able to stay in the district. So we do want that commitment from them. They'll know that up front. Omaha Westside had the same thing in place because we're putting a lot into them. And I think this says it, what we have. I think it's the best thing we have on these slides you're going to read. I want to keep and cultivate our own people. We have great people here, and let's help them. Let's help them get to the final step. Okay, so the question, we did this survey last spring. We had 75 people of our support staff that are very interested in becoming a certified teacher. 28 currently have an associate's or bachelor's degree, and that's a big part of it. Some others are working on it. We have 3 current staff members in that Central Nebraska Teach program. I think Mr. White here's wife is one of them. But again, the number one barrier is just the cost, time and cost. And they can't stop working to pay to go to classes, to take their classes, even if they want to. So our plan is they keep working for us. We want them to continue working for us. And then they can take their classes as well. It'll be a major commitment for those people that will be involved in this program, but the outcome will be well worth it, we think. So we called it the Educator Fellowship Program. That was just the name that the group came up with. I think it was Caitlin Jensen is famous for this, so her name should probably follow this, I believe. So part of it was when we worked with Omaha Westside, they said, you've got to get a partner. We ended up getting 2, and I'll tell you why. Wayne State, we already have good partnership with the Central Nebraska Teach. They already have it in place. And we reached out to every college in state, and some sent us a proposal, some did not. I believe we had 6 proposals. These were the 2 we chose. Wayne State, we already had it. They already have a program set up for elementary education. And it's a 3-year program for our people to complete. It's pretty rigorous when you think you're doing this during the fall semester, spring, and summer, and you're working full-time. And you're basically being a full-time student on the other side. Which will mean evening classes, and we'll help support that, and I'll kind of talk you through what we think that's going to look like. And Shadron State has a great online program. North Platte's using that. They speak very highly of it. The Shadron is the part where if somebody, you saw some people with bachelor's, associates that might be close to the finish line, they need 12 credits left. They may be done in a semester or a year. And so the Shadron State, now that one's totally online. They're going to have to do a lot of it on their own. We'll have some support here, but that will be totally online, where the Wayne State one will be classes like maybe at this facility or one of our buildings where they will come in and have support from one person that will really be the contact with the college, also kind of the person that will help them make sure they're staying up on things. Because this is going to be very time consuming, and they still have a family at home, and they might be spending Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 5 to 8:30 taking classes. All fall, all spring, and then how the summer looks. So we know it's going to be rigorous, but we also know what the outcome can be. That's why we selected those two, and I'll tell you kind of our next steps as we keep moving. We're going to be an active partner in this. We want 10 people in the program. We want to fund 5 of them. GIPS will, and we're working on a partner sponsor or sponsors for the other 5 teachers in the program. So our goal is to have 10 between the 2 colleges, universities. If we get more than that, that's a bonus. If that helps us fill positions, especially down the road, obviously that's a great thing. The Chadron State could be somebody that's only in the program for a year or a semester, even depending on where they're at. So we have some options there. So here's what we'll provide: tuition, books, fees, a device for them to use, job security. They will still work for us, so they still have an income coming in, and also during student teaching as well. So we will continue to pay them their salary while they student teach, which is a major commitment. They'll have a dedicated guidance from a GIPS advisor to navigate the challenges, to support them, to be with them during their class time. And then we'll also have assistance, hopefully, with our education pathway students to help freeing the teachers with some of their studies. We're hoping some things with the pathway kids to cover when they do some of their practicum hours, their field experiences. They can do that while they're working, or if they need to get out of their work, hopefully we can utilize some of that along the way. There's some details to probably finalize, and we'll probably have to tweak things as we go. But the major setup of what we have it with our partnership is good to go. So the goal of this is, again, 5 supported by us, 5 supported by a partner. Again, we're still working on the partnership piece. We've had a couple meetings with potential donors and still working on a couple more. So that's one area we're still working on. We need to finalize here because we do want this to start this summer. Obviously, where I'm at, I wish we could start in January. The sooner we start, the sooner we get to the finish line. But there's also some next steps along this. Probably one of the questions you're going to ask, how do we identify the people for this? And we're going to do that next week with a meeting, but we'll identify people that will meet some of the criteria, like either the associates or they must have probably a minimum 40 credits. With the colleges, we'll have to look at their transcripts and they'll have to be accepted into the program. Like I said, some that maybe have a bachelor's already may need minimal, or if they're close to their bachelor's. And so we have some people that are probably going to be in some good places. I've talked to a couple of them. One that's going to have to just take a few classes and will student teach could have it, I'm hoping, by fall, by mid-year. So there's possibly some options for some of those people. Our principals are identifying what they would consider high-quality people. One of the things that Westside gave us was they thought the most important piece of this was the principal's recommendation of that candidate. And we've told our principals, this is someone you'd hire back in your building in 2 years or 3 years to teach for you. Because that's how we're looking at it. And I think probably most of our buildings can say they have that person or maybe 2 people. Now hopefully they'll qualify and have some of the credits needed to jump into either one of these 2 programs, whether it be with Wayne State or Chadron State. So cost is probably one of the things. For the program for 5 over 3 years, we estimated, I saw the one earlier, Wayne State was $7,000. We estimated a little higher at $8,000. We know each year tuition doesn't go down. For you that have college kids, it usually goes up, I believe, doesn't it? Or has it changed since my kids got out of college? Okay, good. Also, while they're substitute teaching, or while they're student teaching, we'll have to have a sub in there replacing them. So, there'll be a cost there as well. And then to provide that advisor position, that won't be a major cost, but we do want someone in that position that will cover those evenings, work with the colleges with that person, kind of on a part-time basis. So, 240,000 for 3 years. If you divide that, it's about 80,000 a year. And that's a pretty large number, I understand, but man, that investment, what it will pay off in 3 years with hiring 5 teachers that are going to be high quality, that are going to stay here, be strong teachers for us in our district. That seems like a great investment, a great return on investment. And especially if we can get, you know, that partner, that donor to fund the other 5 will make it even stronger for us as well. So here's some other pieces. You know, we have some visa teachers that are employed by the school district, some J1 and some H1B visa teachers. The anticipation there is about $10,000 per year for them. There's a lot of costs on the H1B, especially with attorney fees in terms of that. So, and when you think of the turnover cost on an average per teacher leaving, it's an average cost of $25,000 per teacher, according to the Learning Policy Institute. So a district our size, again, we threw out some numbers, could save, you know, about $750,000 if our current turnover was cut in half. Now that might be high, but that would be a great goal to get to. But the bigger thing is being able to grow our own, and them coming and staying, again, will be a great investment for us. So, questions you have? Yeah.
Derek.
Thank you. My question is, you said Wayne State College has classes on site. Have you designated like a spot, like at the district or?
So currently they are using it for the Central Nebraska Teach program. We've had some of our administrators teach it. They've Julie Schnitzler did when she was at Howard, the LC. We've also done it at Kinnickerum. The principal there has taught those classes. So if it depends, like if the instructor is one of ours or if Wayne has someone they hire, if we can use one of ours, that's an ideal way of doing it. Kind of ties things in with the GIPS way. It's worked really well, and then we usually have it at that building or we'll have it here at Central Office. We'd like to have one of the things West Side really suggested. They had a set spot, I believe, in one of their buildings. I can't remember which one of their, I think it was an elementary, and they had some space, like must have had an empty classroom at West Side. They probably did, or they built it on probably. And anyway, so they had that space. And so they had that was just typically set up for those teachers in that program. And I think they started with 15, one dropped, and they had an extra that they put in, and those people all started, all but one finished it and started teaching for them this past year. Nice. But they said that was an important piece, and to have that support there for them. But that's how they did it. We haven't got into the depth because it'll probably depend on who teaches. It would be nice to have a set spot for them. It's kind of their home, so to say, because they're going to spend a lot of time in the next 2.5, 3 years together. Yeah. And kind of it's kind of like a cadre piece, and I think that way they can support each other along with the advisor and us in HR. I mean, I think Dr. Kohler and myself will spend a lot of time with them as well as they're building principles where they're working.
No, yeah, for sure. I think you just talked yourself into it then. Some space in the annex maybe with the advisor there. Yeah. My other question was, can you speak a little bit more towards like the current staff that are interested in it? How long have they been with the district? Do they have roots in the community? Like, I think Dr. Kohler presented it last time to us, and she mentioned how some of them like have kids in the school district, and just to add some more reassurance that we're not just like throwing money to like any kind of like para-educator or anyone that's, I guess, interested, but more so from the recommendation from a principal and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things we're going to do, and we don't have all the details to some of that, like our survey was pretty, just find out where people are at, their interest level, degree level, that. We have a date next week to meet with all the paras, after school, where we're going to share this information, and that way they can collect their transcripts. And then the last week of February, Wayne State and Chadron State will be here at the Neal Building in the morning, and we're going to have the people come back in again with, they have to have a recommendation from the building principal. That's kind of a make or break piece to this. And then they will meet with, you know, the Wayne State or Chadron State individuals to see, do they qualify, do they meet the needs, what's it going to take for them to hit the finish line. And then through that, we'll get down to our, you know, our 10 applicants after that. So we kind of got the next steps. We'll get that sent out as soon as this gets approved. We haven't shared a lot. The principals know, they've had some discussion with people, but we haven't rolled it out to everybody. Because you said, want to make sure it's the right people. These got to be people that can, one, it's going to be a tough road. I mean, everything I got from Westside was, this is a grind. But at the end, it's well worth the grind. But we also got to support those people through that. And they liked our idea of the advisor, and they did some things to support their people as well.
Mr. Hawley.
With regards to narrowing down your applicants, since we know we want to fund 5, and we're
Yes.
still looking for donors to fund the other 5,
Yep.
how are you going to release that? Are you going to just select the first 5 that we know we're going to fund until you secure the funding, and then let the next 5 know? I mean, I don't want people hanging on a limb waiting for money that may or may not come. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our plan is to identify 10, and then the goal would be to start. Now, if we can't get that funding, then we'll have a couple decisions. Maybe they start next year. And I mean, so we have some different options. We'd like this to be a yearly program, worst case every other year. And I hope we get to the point where we don't have enough, or we have some ideas with our Ed Pathway kids, which kind of that would make an ideal roll into this. And I think that would be kind of our next steps as well. But that would be our process. We get enough to start that first group, and I think we're going to, I mean, our mindset is we're going to find the money and do everything we can and get that money so that we can make this happen the way we want it to happen.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Court.
Thanks.
Item number 6.4, IT Equipment Management Plan Updates. Mr. Corey Gerhardt.
Well, I don't think we're going to make the basketball game. Mitch did say that I should just come up here and say it's a lot of really complicated stuff, but at the end, we're going to be saving money. So what we wanted to bring to the board this evening was just a quick or a couple different presentations, but one about our current equipment management plan. So this is the overarching budget and plan that we used for equipment replacement in the district. And so I'm going to talk through some of the changes. This has basically been adopted about 10 years ago, and we've been modifying things over time, but because of some of the purchases we're looking at doing and this evening, we wanted to show you how we're, operating with stewardship around the taxpayer money that we're using. And so, real quick, I did show some of this at the new board member orientation, so it might look familiar, but just wanted to bring some of this up to the rest of the board. Our mission is to enhance the educational experience through high-quality support. Everything that the IT department does here is supporting teachers and students in this educational process. And so it's important to us that when we make decisions and the things that we do, it's all about how we drive assisting and supporting that instruction. You'll see this quite a bit in the district. This is really our priority, our focus areas of positive supports, instructions, and PLCs. And then a quick glimpse into the IT department. We currently support just over 10,000 Chromebooks. We manage anywhere between 9,000 and 13,000 tickets a year. 10,000 is a good number. So that's what we go with. We have about 8,000 wireless devices on our network at any given time during peak times during the day. Almost 1,500 laptops we support, 1,000 access points, about 1,000 desktop machines, 800 projectors. That'll become important here in a little bit. We're going to talk about that. About 230 switches, 24 facilities, and we do that with 14 staff members. So we really have, and I'll talk a little bit about staffing here in a minute as well to show what we've done over the past several years in regards to that. This is the structure of the IT department. We're basically in 4 different teams. We have a network and systems team, operations, analyst, programmers, that's our student information system, and then we have our mobile IT technicians in the lower left there. It's hard to read. There is a PDF, I think, of this on the board minutes if you wanted to look into that any closer. So why are we looking at making changes? Back in 2018, the IT department budget was reallocated a little bit, went down 12%, and it's remained flat ever since. So when you think about that in terms of technology, that's a long time. And technology has changed, but it doesn't, surprisingly, Mr. Harden, doesn't get any cheaper. And especially in the last several years, we've seen just, inflation is driving costs across the board, particularly in the tech space as well. Fewer federal dollars. We were able to leverage the federal monies pretty well during the ESSER grant programs. And so we did have an opportunity to, if you remember the budget workshop, there was some money that got put into depreciation fund for IT, and we're gonna tap into some of that this evening. Cybersecurity needs are growing, and then management overhead for current devices. That certainly plays people's time, labor, and management systems in order to keep systems up and operational matter. So our current state, our student devices, we were doing a 4-year cycle on Chromebooks. The reason was that when we originally rolled out, you got 5 years out of them, and that was all they were guaranteed to get updates. And so we really targeted 4 years. We were worried about battery life. We were worried about other security issues. The latest models that are coming out have 8 years of updates guaranteed. So we're able to extend the life of these. Staff devices, we've been on a 5-year cycle. We're seeing that 5th year can be a struggle, and so we're looking at some changes there. And then in our labs, we're currently on 5 years. So what are we looking to do? In our student devices, in our K-5, we have traditionally had on carts. We're actually gonna take that all the way to 6th grade. So 6th grade's gonna be on carts. It's functionally how they're operating today in 2 of the 3 middle schools where the devices are staying at school. They seem to be have fewer issues with them with students, and the curriculum needs are driving that decision as well. So if they're going to be at school, we'd like to have a good place for them to be safe and charge and do what they need to do, and we can avoid any issues that might come with having them stacked up on a counter in a corner or things like that. So we're going to change that over, and we're going to move those to a 6-year cycle. So we're going to add 2 years to those. And that will generate a savings of approximately $145,000 a year. And that's on a 10-year average of what we purchase, because about every 3rd year there's a fluctuation in devices. Grades 7 through 12, we're going to give students a new device in 7th grade, and they're going to keep that until 12th. So we used to do it in 5th. They would carry it forward all the way through 8th grade, and then as a freshman they would get a new device and they would go. We are purchasing models that have more RAM and more storage, so we expect them to be able to last throughout that time. And we haven't had an issue with batteries like we thought we would. Occasionally you'll get a bad one and we'll just replace it, but for the most part they're not failing and they're lasting all day still, several, at our 5-year mark. So we anticipate that's not going to be an issue. Lab device changes. What we're finding is, depending on which integration specialist you ask, the labs, because students all have a Chromebook, they could use the Chromebook. If they want to continue to use the PC, there really isn't curriculum that's driven on that particular platform. And so what we found is a compromise where we can we can put basically the Chrome OS that's the same as what's on the Chromebook on the existing devices, and we can extend their lifetime out several years. So that's going to save us some monies there, and then we can have the conversation about what that looks like when those do age out. And I anticipate that to be in 3 or 4 years. This is a chart. Mr. Fisher said don't put it in here, but I really like this one, so I had to. This just shows how we keep track of the lifespan of our devices. So what's that mean? It's about $175,000 in savings a year on a 10-year average starting in year 2. So there's going to be some upfront cost to the transition, but then it's going to save us some money. Now on the staff side of the house, we're looking at some different options there as well. Currently, it's a PC, Windows PC, Windows 11. We're looking at replacing that and giving staff actually an option. If they want to go with a touch device, we have a 14-inch Chromebook Plus, which is a 360 tablet, so it's a 2-in-1 convertible. It flips all the way around. You can touch it, and you can use a stylus with that product. The other option that they would be able to select would be a 13-inch MacBook Air. And surprisingly, I bet you're all scratching your head saying, why, how can this be cheaper? Well, it is. So as the costs continue to increase for our PCs, in order to keep them at the same specification that you can meet with an Apple Silicon, an M1 or an M2 processor, we've just realized that your total cost of ownership is actually less. Because by the time you're done with a PC, there's not a lot of intrinsic value left to our recyclers. Whereas with a Mac, an M2, you can see, depending on the model that you pick, anywhere between $250, $280 in resale value, going back to a third party at the end. So you take that off the top, that's why it costs a little more to get us started. But ultimately, being able to sell those back will end up offsetting those costs and actually show us a decline in expense. Plus, we're going to shave off a year. So instead of a 5-year, it's going to go to a 4-year cycle. And that's an ideal, perfect world. Depending on what things happen in the next several years, I am going to reserve the right to extend that out to a 5th year if we need to. They'll be able to handle it. The resale value won't be as much, but depending on what revenues do and so on over the next several years, we just need to have that in our back pocket. We are also going to change, we haven't done this before, we're going to offer an optional protection plan for staff. That was a question that was raised when we started doing the one-to-one to students. Can staff buy into it too? In the past, the decision was made because there was some disparity in how it was getting applied that we actually covered staff repairs. Unfortunately, the reality is that too many repairs are maybe due to people not taking very good care of their equipment, and so we are looking at giving them an opportunity to purchase that protection plan similar to how we do it with students, and give them that peace of mind so that they can not be responsible for the full amount should something happen to devices going forward. Again, optional, and we'll set it up so that it comes out in October. They can come right out of their paycheck, and then we can cover that in an 85-15 split. So if something happens to the device, the district will cover 85% of the repair, and the staff would be responsible for 15. Special cases, we'll still have PC laptops and desktops for our business labs, CAD labs, anything that needs it in our secondaries. And then if we need multimedia labs, we have Mac Mini options for the desktop. One of the things that again, in addition to that resale value, the management systems that were in place for Apple when we made the decision to move away from them back in the day was not robust enough to do what we needed it to do to take care of the devices and ensure that level of experience at an enterprise scale. And subsequently to us moving away, Apple really has done some soul searching, and they've found that they've been able to implement a number of those types of device management features that were really needed from the enterprise level. And so that's going to help actually simplify some of our deployment experiences, updates, and things like that on the devices too. And then the Chromebooks, they are obviously much simpler to manage than a PC. The last item is really more of a soft benefit. We do have districts around the state that offer a buyout for devices for the staff. So after the 4 years or 5 years, depending on how this goes, they would have an option to purchase the device that they're using, just that one, for what I would call grade A retail. So when I turn around and ask for a quote from someone, they're going to say, yeah, I'll give you $250 for that unit. And I say, okay, if you'd like it, you can pay me $251. That's the high dollar. And we go ahead and do that. And I did get that approved. So I think we're in good shape there. That'll give us about $14,000 in additional savings. So what are we going to do with that funding? Currently, buildings are responsible for their projectors. We're going to bring that in-house because, again, disparity, there's not a system in place. It happens when it happens, and so sometimes we get aged equipment that isn't necessarily being taken care of, and then we go, oh, great, we don't have the budget for it, but we need to upgrade 15 or 20 of these things at a time. We're going to take that on so our building principals don't have to worry about it. We're going to start a cycle, so we're going to put these on an 8-year cycle and just start putting them through. And so the staffing that I talked about earlier, just going back to show you, you know, we did some reorganization in 2021. We reduced 2.25 FTE. Last year we had some attrition, part of the budget cuts. We reduced another FTE. We've got another opportunity here that we're going to hold on to an FTE if someone resigns this summer, and then we're going to look at what it makes the most sense of how to deploy that over the next year, whether that's in a cybersecurity arena, whether that's looking at doing something with an internship for a special project with one of our college partners. So reallocating the funds, projectors, that's going to run us about $90,000 a year. You can see our repair costs. That's students and staff, but it's a substantial amount. We have the firewalls again. I'm going to talk about cybersecurity here in just a second. Log analyzer goes right along with that. Antivirus costs. Because of insurance, we're having to do more of that and add more software on more machines. And then the middle school carts, and then we have some curriculum iPads that were purchased with one-time funds that are really part of the curriculum, and they need to be on the equipment management plan, so they're going to come on board as well. So, what do you think? Any questions? Y'all still awake? We'll do the next one. All right, so that's all I have for this one, but I get the next three, so.
Next three. All right, 6.5, projector purchase.
Okay, so if we look at this, this is just what I was talking about. To start that process of cycling through all of those projectors on an 8-year rotation. We have about 800 of them, which makes sense. That's our classrooms, close to our classroom count. Also includes our meeting spaces and things like that. So we did quotes from several vendors. This is under state contract. Well, technically it's already been bid. This was, CDW was the low bidder via Epson. So we'd like to move forward with purchasing this. If we do it we were doing it 5 at a time, you know, you don't get as good of a deal. And so this is just an opportunity for us to maximize our purchase power by doing it all in one shot once a year. Any questions there? Okay.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, with all the additional hardware, just curious, and I might have missed it or misunderstood on that last slide, is there like going to be an additional, like you're going to need people to manage putting in hardware and?
So it actually, if we do this right, it should make our jobs easier.
Okay.
So because of the amount of investment and time and management that goes into driver updates, BIOS updates, and some of those other things on the Windows platform, by going to at more MDM managed devices in the Apple and Chrome ecosystems, I actually think it's going to reduce some of our touch points on devices, which will make us more productive.
Okay. I was thinking, in addition to that, specifically like adding like projectors, because that's going to increase your ticket calls and people going, this doesn't
Well,
work.
we're already supporting that.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry, no.
I thought
we're
you meant
just-
that was all on the buildings and you were, okay, perfect.
Thank you. We're just not purchasing them.
Got it.
So now we will be. Okay.
Item 6.6, cybersecurity update and incident response directive.
Okay, we will go faster through this. This is all in the PDF. Essentially, what you're seeing here is a number of slides that tell you how bad it's getting from a cybersecurity perspective in education. Essentially, from 22 to 23, we're seeing, 70 to 100% surges in cyber attacks and malware on school districts, both K-12 and K-20. $9 billion worth of cost to academic institutions, et cetera, and 35% of that's on the K-12 side. New ransomware, I put this together before the Power School thing, but what's important in that third bullet, if you notice, and this is really close, it depends on how you calculate it, that's about what it costs today to run things. And so when we lose our network, or we lose our SIS, or we lose our computer systems, that's the productivity that goes out the door every day. And we just need to be cognizant of how expensive that can be when we don't have it. So that's why downtime is so costly. Ransomware, I think the last slide said, 7 million records. Well, Power School did that by an order of magnitude with one breach a few months ago. So why schools? We have a lot of sensitive data. We have what would be considered limited IT resources. Similar to what Mr. Sykes just asked, do you have the people to do that? Traditionally not compared to what corporate does. And we have critical operations dependence. So similar to manufacturing, you can't be down. There's no reorganizing that. That's just lost. So, and then potential for quick payments, because most everybody has insurance. And unfortunately, that's the way these go. Why schools? Data overload, IT sprawl. We like to include all devices and all things. Some of our cloud security, this is in here, but we do have cloud security measures in place in Google, and then backups and configurations. So this is what CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's the federal agency that helps support state, local education, and government entities, say that we should be focusing our priorities on. So multi-factor patch management, backups, cyber incident response plan, that's what we're talking about today, and then creating training and testing and awareness. This is a different way to look at that. If you'll notice on the right-hand side, there's a bunch of things. I'm not going to go through them all, but the good news is if you see what's highlighted in yellow, that's what we're doing today. So this is what they're recommending, and we're doing these things. And this has been painful over the last several years. When we talk about implementing multi-factor authentication, we talk about some of the security things that we do on devices, limiting admin access. All of that is because that's what keeps us safer in this realm. So what do we need to keep doing? Phishing, number one, it's still 80 to 85% of your attacks come from phishing, which means credentials are leaked from someone inadvertently. We have a security standards. That's what we're doing now. We're working through this process of preparedness. So what does that process look like? This is the incident response, preparation, detection, containment, eradication, and then post-incident activity. Now I'm going to go really fast through the next slides. But they're there in case you want to dig into them. So what's preparation look like? Plan ahead, regular backups, train your staff. That's what we're doing. Next steps, detection and analysis. These are the tools. So this is when we talk a little later about firewall and logging. this is what we're talking about. So we need to be able to spot the suspicious activity on the network and on the computers. We need to have systems in place that collect the data that let us do that. And then we need to be able to report those things quickly through the organization so that we can respond. Containment, eradication, this is once we identify it, what do we do? Had an anecdote, we bought a 3D printer, plugged in the thumb drive with the drivers on it, immediately blew up our antivirus, and turned out there were 3 different kinds of malware on that thumb drive that came from the manufacturer. Like, that happens, and it happens today. That's a supply chain exploit, and we were notified about it. In about 2 hours we had it resolved, but it could have been, you know, certainly a lot worse than what it turned into. And then afterwards, we need to look at what we did and see if that was the best way or if we could mitigate things so they don't happen in the first place. So these are the groups that I was talking about earlier: CISA, Center for Internet Security, NIST, MSISAC, which leads us to the question on the table, which is the Cybersecurity Incident Response Directive. Let me just pull that up, and I'll just walk through it. It essentially says that you're granting Mr. Fisher the authority to let us do what we need to do in the event of a cyber attack, or malware or ransomware or something on our network. So it's saying that you understand that the people that we have are going to be trained to do this stuff, and we're going to do whatever it takes to help prevent further damage from happening to the organization. And sometimes that means shutting off access and doing things that may be contrary to what our mission is as an organization, but we have to do that in order to try and get back to operations as quickly as possible. So this is the 7-page document that references the 36-page document that we're not going to put online, because it details how we do all that. If you want to know how that works, come see me. Be more than happy to show you. But for now, I would just appreciate if we could approve this, and we'll move on. So that's all I've got for this one.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. So I was here talking to Mr. Hawley, and I was like, do we have a policy that dictates anything with ransomware? Is that basically the incident response directive then? Is that just in place instead of a policy, or is it recommended that we do have a policy? I guess that was my question.
So this response directive, so we don't have a policy. What we have is an information management policy, which is 4640. And that directs myself, at the direction of Mr. Fisher, to create things from time to time that are rules that we put in place to help secure and support the organization's technology resources. This is kind of step one of that. So now we have this directive. This directive lets us reference one of those rules and procedures, which is our cybersecurity incident response plan, and allows us to authorize the cybersecurity incident response team to react according to that plan when we have a malware ransomware event.
Mr. Hawley.
This is an interesting topic. So it kind of is, I guess. You know, so I work in the software space, and we keep seeing these same things all the time. And we had an email this week that said, do not put any outside devices inside your company laptop. Do not take your company outside devices and put them in your personal laptop. Is there a way to block the computers from reading external USB drives?
There is.
Can we do that? Because everything we're doing now is on the cloud. It's on Google Classroom. It's on all these other platforms. There should be no need for external hard drives or USBs, which should hopefully help this problem.
So you can, but that's the balance between security and usability, because you can block everything that gets plugged into that device. You can block everything that says that it's a disk drive that gets plugged into that device, but I can also take something and pretend that it's a disk drive when it isn't. Or I can take it and pretend that it's a keyboard when it's a disk drive. So it's a layer, and that's all we do is just create layers of abstraction through which you have to get in order to compromise this. But it's a layer that, unfortunately, it's difficult unless you're going to, this is the only mouse that gets used in this organization. This is the only external keyboard that gets used in this organization. This is the only assistive technology that gets used in the organization. If you can't define your peripherals across the board, then it becomes so unmanageable, and the user experience goes so poorly that you typically can't keep that in force. The DOD gets to do it.
Okay, seeing nothing further, going on to 6.7, firewall and logging system purchase.
Okay. So this is a pretty large purchase. We started looking for grant funds back in November, through the E-rate cybersecurity pilot. Unfortunately, only one school in the state got that. It was a small private school in Omaha, so no one else of the 20 or so people I know that applied for it even had a shot at it either. But it was, I guess sometimes when things seem too good to be true, they probably are. But unfortunately, we still have to buy this stuff because our current firewalls are 8 years old. They're end of life. The current logging system is equally as old, and it's actually within the next 6 months going to be not supported for updates. So those are our two components that unfortunately we have to run. They're rather expensive, but this is a pretty good deal, and we think that it will meet our needs for the next at least 5 years, likely longer. And we did, it's a single source, again, vendor bid through the state, so we go through the VAR that they recommend and negotiated the best price we could come up with.
No questions, so.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Gerhart. Item number 6.8, Grand Island Public Schools, Engelman Elementary Temporary Easement.
Thanks, President McFarland. The city's going to be doing a project on the north side of Engelman, which is going to be to repave Independence, add a sidewalk or walking trail, and then get rid of the ditch so that they can then drain that, and it'll look like a regular, common day street. So what we're asking tonight is to give them permission for a temporary easement on the north side of Engelman for them to do some of that work and also to stage their contractor equipment. Once it's all said and done, of course, they're going to be on our site. They're going to be removing some of the trees, regrading, and then we'll install the sprinkler system and grass in that area. So it'll be a green space. A couple things that I highly support on this is with this project is it then gives us a better line of sight by removing some of the trees. But one of the big things that it's going to do is create a safe pathway through the neighborhood going north. And this is something that I've been talking to the city about for literally 19 years. And so it's finally coming to fruition. It's been funded. And again, we, on the safety side, support it highly. But that's about it. It's just a temporary easement. Once they're done, we aren't giving land or anything of that nature to them. It's just allow them access on our property and to utilize it and do work. So with that, I'll conclude my comments and answer any questions you might have. Pretty exciting.
Ms. Wilson.
I'm just wondering when that is supposed to take place and how long it will take.
They're planning on doing some of the, it's not just Independence, but it's also some of the streets that are non-paved in that area to kind of the northeastern portion. So they're going to start that this spring. And then when this piece on Independence obviously is going to shut that down, and they'll commence that work after school's out. So should not affect our regular school activity until summer hits.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pitch. Item number 6.9, Hall County School District 2 DBA Grand Island Public Schools Audit Report 23-24. Mr. Virgil Harden.
Well, good evening. I only have a 3-hour presentation on every number, so I hope you're prepared. If I see anybody dozing off, I don't know, I'll just talk louder. No, I won't do that to you. You do have the audit report attached. I have 6 or 7 things I just want to point out. Very high level kind of stuff, so we won't take too much of your time. So, of course, these are basic financial statements. They're on the cash basis of accounting, not modified accrual or accrual, so that's important to know. On page, I think it's page 1, the most important thing of an audit report is that there is an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. So what that simply means is the financial information that we presented to them, they were able to verify enough on a statistical basis that the numbers were correct and good and right. So the good thing is with the requirements with the state that we have to have I basically call it a 3-way match. Our financials on our accounting system have to match accounting on the audit report and accounting on the annual financial report. So 3 different things all have to match. And they, of course, do. So that's a good thing. I'm clear, and so page 6 through 41 are a lot of different financial reports, all based on the different funds that we operate. And so the only fund that we are authorized to operate that we don't operate is the student fees fund. We shut that down a number of years ago. Other than that, GIPS does operate all other funds that are actually authorized for school districts. So clear on page 45, compliance and internal controls. No material matters of non-compliance, no deficiencies or reported on errors on internal controls over the year that they audited. On page 47, again, this is the audit of major federal financial awards. So unmodified opinion on compliance with material program requirements, no deficiencies reported on the internal controls. Major programs that they specifically dealt and dived into are child nutrition, IDEA, and the COVID money that we received. And then on page, let's see, further on then, we have a separate required communication to the board. There is a separate letter there. No items to bring to your attention, so that's nice. And then the only adjusting journal entries that they ended up doing were simply ones just to make those everything match the way we showed it. Just needed to be adjusted, so there's literally 2 journal entries that we reclassified in expenditure, and that was it. So that's the kind of stuff you want on an audit report, short and sweet. No comments, no issues. Everything's been filed with the state. Of course, the background is normally we do this like in December because it was due November 1st, but the story is that our auditors we had lined up let themselves go, basically, July 1st or 2nd. And so we got approval from the Department of Education Auditor of Public Accounts to delay our audit report being done until the 31st of January, which we did. And like I said, everything's been submitted. It's also been submitted then to all the reporting agencies. And that's important for our debt management. So with that, I would conclude my comments. I lied. I have one more comment. I apologize. No approval needed this month. It is set for, you never approve an audit report. You just simply accept it and place it on file. So that's next month. So we'll talk more about the fun and exciting audit report next month. Now on to policy.
Thank you, Mr. Harden. Item 6.10, policy, Mr. Matt Fisher.
Now that we got all that boring stuff out of the way, we can jump into some really good stuff. Fortunately, I think the policies this month don't require a whole lot of changing, and they are all around the business operations. So we'll start with policy 4321, deals with gate receipts and admissions. Actually, there is no identified changes in this policy. So on its first read, we would just be reviewing it, and unless something comes up between now and next month, it would be approved on review. Questions on that one? All right. Then moving on to 4320 on income from school sales. This one actually was one that Mr. Harden felt like we needed to strike most all of what was there before and put it in some different terminology. Got it to be shorter. That's always a good thing. And pretty much most of what's there is stating the same thing. Not a lot of real significant changes other than just simply a changing in the wording. Any questions on that? All right. And we'll move on to impressed funds. The most important thing about this is the asterisk that's here. We saw this in several other places where the executive director of business was being used rather than chief financial officer. So we changed that wording. And then if you look down there, that word impressed, there is actually a footnote down here, which is important because if you're like I was and you first read impressed fund, you thought, well, how impressive are they? But actually, when you read it, an impressed fund is one in which the expenditures precede the accounting rather than incurring after the accounting. So in this type of an account, a reimbursement is typically made to the account to reestablish a balance. And so this is basically the fund that we use to pay for postage and some things like that, where we take the money out when we have to pay for the postage, and then ultimately we reimburse that fund to keep the balance at what the balance is set at. Questions on that one? All right, cash in school buildings, 4340. And this one, quite a bit of red there, but for the most part it's just changing in the wording. And I think just really a matter of cleaning up some of the wording and really not changing the intent of the policy in any real significant way. Questions there? All right. Then on to payroll payment policy, 4450. Not a lot here. Changing that director of business this time. That's a different terminology. Changing that to chief financial officer. And then down below, talking about a physical check. So again, clarifying that here in this case, we're talking about something that would physically be presented rather than an electronic copy of something. Otherwise, I believe that's it. That one. Questions there? All right. And settlement of claims, 4470. And again, this is one that has very minor change, one we've seen in other places. We're going to move away from the Grand Island Public Schools to just being Grand Island Public Schools, so we need to cross out the. And that's all that's needed in terms of this one. Questions there? Told you this was exciting stuff.
All right, on to item 7.1, 2025-26 staffing plan action item. Mr. Court.
So I'm back on that. So any questions about anything on the staffing plan from earlier?
Seeing none, I would accept a motion to approve the staffing plan as presented.
I make a motion to adopt the 2025-2026 staffing plan as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. GIPS Educator Fellowship. Mr. Cord again.
Yep. Anyone have any questions about that?
Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Need a motion first.
I make a motion to adopt the GIPS Fellowship Program as presented.
Second by Mr. Garcia Mendez. Discussion. Now we proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 7.3, projector purchase.
Hi.
Hi.
Any questions?
I would entertain a motion at this time to approve the quote for the projector.
Make a motion to approve the quote for projector purchase as submitted.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, I proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Seven point four, cybersecurity update and incident response directive.
So this will be for approval of the incident response directive that was presented and attached.
Any questions for Mr. Gerhart? I would entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion to approve the ITRP 4640-001 Cybersecurity Incident Response Directive, authorizing the Cybersecurity Incident Response Team, CIRT, to perform the duties described in the referenced Cybersecurity Incident Response Plan, CIRP.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. 7.5, firewall and logging system purchase.
Any questions there? I appreciate you doing it. I know that we don't like to do info and action on the same night. We just have some instability around pricing, and so this is going to help, help us maintain our budget.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the quote.
I make a motion to approve the quote for the firewalls and logging system as submitted.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, we proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 7.6, GIPS Engelman Elementary Temporary Easement. Do you have any questions for Mr. Petch? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the Engelman Elementary temporary easement as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Item 7.7,
All right, then just keep
4350
moving as well now.
corporate credit cards.
Okay. Policy 4350, corporate credit cards. Only change here was changing that executive director of business to chief financial officer. Otherwise, this would just be a review of existing policy.
Questions?
Make a motion to approve policy 4350, corporate credit cards as presented.
Second by Mr. Hawley. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Item 7.8, audits.
Okay, policy 4410 audits. Here there was some change in language, but again, really no change in intent of any of the policy that was reviewed here. A number of different changes. I guess if there are any questions about any of those changes, we can answer those.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 4410, audits as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion. May proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 4420, financial reports and statements. For the most part, this policy, just a little bit of wording changes, getting rid of a "the" here, adding a "of education" to the board in a couple of places, changing the periodically to "as needed." So that language was changed. The other change that was a part of this, that last statement deals with enrollment rather than really financial reports and statements. And so we struck that as not being necessarily a part of this particular policy.
Seeing no questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve policy 4420.
I make a motion to approve policy 4420, financial reports and statements as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion. Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 4443, vendor relations. There were no changes in this policy. This would simply be a review. Any questions on that?
Questions? I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve policy 4443, vendor relations as presented.
Second by Mr. Hawley. Discussion. May proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 4451, authorized signatures. This is one where the only changes that were made were in the verbiage around the Grand Island, and then we added public schools, and then changing executive director of business to chief financial officer. So really no change in the intent of the policy at all.
Questions?
Make a motion to approve policy 4451, authorized signatures as presented.
Second by Mr. Hawley. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 4570, commercial advertising in schools. We have that we started out with early on, and then down towards the bottom, there is one other change in this one. It talked about organization or individual whose primary purpose is selling goods or services is subject to the approval of the Board of Education. So if you had someone that wanted to do advertising, the way it read before, the board would need to approve that, which has not been what our practice has been. So felt like probably adding the verbiage that approval of the Board of Education or their designee would fall more in line with what our practice is. Otherwise, that was the only change there.
No questions? I would entertain a
Make a motion to approve policy 4570, commercial advertising in schools as presented.
second by Mr. Hawley. May proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Reports. Grand Island Public Schools Foundation Report, Ms. Lisa Albers.
This is the foundation report from, must have been from January, because I think they meet next week. We are in the best season of the year, scholarship season. The deadline for the GIPS Foundation online scholarship application was February 5th. In addition to being user-friendly for students, the web-based data also allows the foundation to revise and perfect the scholarship reviewing process. The review process will involve approximately 100 volunteers. Reviewers do not see personal data as student applicants are assigned a number. Volunteer reviewers start training the last week of February. Let us know if you would like to be part of this review process. Anyone who would like to volunteer to be part of the scholarship review is welcome as long as they are not related to a GISH senior this year. Please contact GIPS Foundation for more information. The foundation is also gearing up for the 2025 annual staff and board campaign. Kickoff will be April 1st. We have set some amazing goals for 2025. Terry and Joel Wiegand are the 2025 campaign chairs. Other action items on the foundation's board agenda this month include the following: 2025 scholarship offer and award plan, approved 2025 scholarship reviewers, and the 2024 GIPS Foundation Impact Report is now available on gipsfoundation.org. And again, just a little plug, I would really encourage any of you who have not read scholarship applications before to do it. It does not take that much time, but it just is a very impactful thing to do and to learn more about our students.
Thank you. Student Representative Report, item number 8.2. Mr. Williams.
All right, I guess I'll try and make it quick for everybody. So, start out with some activities. The girls wrestling team finished second at districts this weekend. The team had 3 district champs and is sending 6 girls to state on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. It's the first year that girls wrestling state and boys is going to be separate. So, and they're going to have 2 classes this year, I believe, for girls. The boys wrestling team finished second in the state at the duals tournament, and they host district for the second year in a row over this weekend, and they'll have state the following weekend. And then I'd like to congratulate the girls bowling team, who last night finished second as the runner-up for the state bowling. The Gish Beach team had great success in their most recent meet, and they had 10 members of the team win a medal in at least one event, and a lot of them were holding up multiple medals in the picture that I saw, so they did a really good job. And then the Islanders dance team earned second place at the Lexington meet, and they have state coming up soon. And our show choir team made the finals in all of their competitions of the season thus far, placing 3rd, 5th, and 1st. And then around GIPS, Gish recently hosted the Clash on the Platte robotics tournament with over 40 middle and high school teams attending the event over this past weekend. And if you have the chance to walk around the Gish campus this week, you'll find thousands of little paper hearts lining the walls of the school. And that's because every student and teacher in the building has their own heart that has their name on it. And so you can walk around the school and try and find your heart. It's quite a... I haven't found mine yet, but hopefully I can find it. On Tuesday, the Islanders hosted their winter pep rally. There was games, cheer and dance performances, and then the band played to open and end. And then there were speakers representing 10 different activities that we're having this winter, and just kind of talking to the students about how their activity's doing, just thanking them for support, things like that. Overall, it was a lot of fun. We had hundreds of students in the East Gym participating in that after their short day on Tuesday. So it's just a little 30-minute thing for some school spirit.
Who won the faculty basketball?
Actually, so there was only one faculty team, and they got knocked out in the first round. Ability hit a half-quarter first attempt to knock out Mr. Hubbard couldn't sink a free throw. He was talking, for weeks on end, he was talking about how in 6th grade he was the area shooting champion for free throws. And then he shows up and misses 6 in a row, and they get killed first round. But
There's probably a reason why he was a wrestler in high school.
yeah, I did win 2 separate events on a team, so go me, I guess. And then lastly, earlier today, me and Mrs. Albers had a chance to join 15 GISH students in Lincoln at the Capitol building, and we got to meet with Senator Quick, where he told his story, and then got to answer some student questions about Nebraska's legislative process, and then we got to sit in on some debate and a committee meeting. So it was a really cool experience, and Civics Nebraska was very generous to support us in that. And then lastly, my staff shout out for this month is another member of GISH's amazing janitorial staff, Eddie. So Eddie and the rest of the janitorial staff do a fantastic job of keeping our school clean. The team had a busy week this past week because they had to fill the entire West Gym up with tables for the parent-teacher conferences, so extra work for them this week. But why I wanted to nominate Eddie is because even though I've never had him as a teacher, obviously, or anything like that, I've just had some lunch conversations with him or passed him in the hallway, I have one of the strongest relationships with him than any other faculty in that building, it seems like. And whenever I run into him, he puts a smile on my face with his jokes and, yeah, just saying hello. And so, and I feel like he's like that for a lot of people. Like, everybody I know knows Eddie, and he knows a lot of people and is always saying hi to people. And he's just, if you want to laugh, you want to run into Eddie in the hall. So I just wanted to thank him for that and making everybody's day a little brighter in the GISH building. So that's all I got. If there's any questions or Mrs. Albers wants to add on about today.
Ms. Albers.
So there were about 15 students today, and this is something that we had been talking about in the Superintendent Student Advisory Council meeting for a while. And I had heard that Civic Nebraska would sometimes sponsor high schools to go up, and this is not your fourth grade trip. This is really diving deeper into the whole advocacy process. And so I brought it up in that meeting, and the kids were excited about it. And Mr. Hubbard was super supportive, and so it was me and Michaela Soundy, and then Mr. Dave Woods went today on the bus. And the kids could have been off school today. They did not have school, and there were a couple were sick, but we had 15 kids that spent their day off going up to Lincoln. And Senator Quick, he spent an hour with us, and I have to tell you, the kids asked great questions. I thought there might be a little bit of a lull, and maybe we'd have to fill in some questions, but kids asked questions, and Dan just really had very thoughtful conversations with them. And then we went to a hearing in the Revenue Committee because they were hearing LB 692. And so when we walked in, Colby Coash was actually, who's the Assistant Director of Nebraska Association of School Boards, was actually testifying. And so they were able to watch a couple people testify. Now this has to do with school finance, so I thought it was kind of timely that we got to see that. It's called Change Provisions to Property Tax Request Authority under School District Property Tax Limitation Act. And so, yeah, what's that mean? Yeah, I'm not sure. But there weren't any proponents for it. There were only opponents. And but it was just a good thing for the kids to see. And then we went and we watched some debate, and it was really pretty interesting because when we got out of that, if you've ever seen when there's debate going on or when they're on the floor, there's like 25 different conversations happening. You know, there's one person talking on the mic, but there's like nobody's paying attention to the person talking on the mic. And so the kids were all like, that's so disrespectful. And they're right. They were completely right. But that they noticed that. And so they just asked so many good questions and had so many good talking points. And it was really just kind of a magical day. And they got to see, got a tour of the Capitol, got to know the history of the art on the walls. And then when we were leaving, Audrey Nance from Civic Nebraska is the person that took us around and kind of made sure we were everywhere we needed to be, and we were on a pretty tight schedule. She said that this group was the best group that she has had in 2.5 years, that they were the most interactive, the most engaged, and I really believe that a lot of that is because we spend a lot of time talking about advocacy in the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. There were some kids from Student Council too, but we're growing some nice young advocates that I think are really going to do good work for our state. And so it was just a magical day. Really had a great day. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Albers, for dedicating your time and efforts to that.
Can I just make a comment quick before we go to the next one? And thank you. I always look forward to your report, so thank you. But I just wanted to thank for just taking that leadership and the step into that position. But Lisa, kudos to you too. You're such a great mentor. I mean, I couldn't, just from being a board member, vice president, president of the board, being an active member at so many levels at the state, at the local level, you're just such a great mentor. And you understand what public education is about. So thank you for always doing that. You're a mentor to me. Any questions? So it's such a great piece that we can have Grand Island Public Schools represented. So, I mean, if anyone doesn't understand the work of public schools, you exemplify mentorship, understand how the work that we need to do. Owen, thank you for stepping in. And anytime you want to pick Lisa's brain, man, she's the woman to go to. So thank you for the work you're doing.
All right, that takes us to item number 8.3, Superintendent Report.
All right, well, Owen did a nice job of covering the activity things that I had down on my report, so that's good. Just a couple of things to add on to, he talked about the bowling, the wrestling. We are at that end of all of our winter seasons, really. In the next couple weeks, we have the state swim meet coming up. District basketball is right around the corner as well. So everything's really kind of winding down with winter sports. Owen had mentioned the speech team, and just wanted to note that Laura Lee Thunker, who is one of the speech coaches, was selected as the Central Nebraska Forensic League's Director of the Year. So congratulations to her. And again, obviously the speech team's doing some good things, and to have one of our coaches recognized for the work they're doing is always a nice thing to have happen. Just wanted to again reemphasize to the board, and I guess anyone that you happen to run into that has students in the district, registration is going on right now. From now until the end of March, we are doing registration, and again, that's a critical part of us knowing how many sections of different classes that we need to have, and really a key part of figuring out exactly what our staffing is. So I think the last couple years we've had that hard March, end of March cutoff date, and after that date, basically we create our sections at that point in time. And if somebody comes to us later and says they want to be in a building where that section that they need are already full, that's when we have to tell them, no, you can't be in that building, even if you live right across the street from that building. We've got to put you where we've got room. And so really, we don't want that to happen. So we really want to encourage everyone to make sure that they get registered within that registration window. March 5th, just a date to put on in your minds, not necessarily that you need to be there or do anything with it, but that is the evening that we'll do the Islander Extravaganza at the high school, which basically is a time when we invite all of the 8th graders to come in, learn more about some of the different activities and clubs that we have going on at the high school, and really give them a chance to have some exposure to the high school. One of the things that we're going to do a little bit different this year is, obviously we're going to focus on 8th graders, but we're also going to invite all middle school students, our 6th grade and our 7th grade students. We're going to invite them to come and join in if they want to on that evening. So hopefully give them a little bit earlier exposure to some of those kind of things. Also along those registration lines, our preschool during the next couple months, we'll be having open house. Anyone that wants to set up a time to come in and look at our preschool will be able to do that on whatever time works for them. And so, again, that's part of our identifying how many preschool students we're going to have next year, and how many different sections of preschool we would need. So So that's something else that we've got going on. Wanted to mention the annual report. Our annual report is currently live on our website, and we're hoping that we will receive the physical copies of that early next week, and then hopefully maybe get them out later in the week next week, as far as sending those out to all of the patrons of Grand Island. Other than that, just wanted to mention the strategic plan work that we've been doing. A couple weeks ago, our district leadership team and our L4L team met and kind of went through, an exercise to really help us think about, how, would we better define the goals that we've put in place, and what would we want to be communicating out to our public and so on. So really just trying to do the work of identifying exactly what those goals might mean. And then we did a similar activity with all of our principals today. During the afternoon, they had parent-teacher conferences this morning. Then this afternoon was a plan and prep time, and so we pulled all the principals in and again did some work around that strategic plan process. So it's moving along. Other than that, we talked a little bit. I wanted to mention that, and I know you got an invite from the high school National Honor Society induction, Sunday afternoon, February 23rd at 4 in the afternoon. So certainly any of you that can attend are certainly invited to do that. Lisa and Owen talked a little bit about what's going on in the legislature. I could fill you in on some more things, but there really hasn't been a ton of stuff that has happened. There have been some bills that have been advanced out of the committee. Right now, it almost would look like they're going to advance everything out of committee and then put it all together, whatever they think we need to have happen to us, into a Christmas tree bill and pass it. That's been their model the last couple years. We'll see where that goes. Some of the things that have come out so far deals with superintendent pay, and we did testify. Actually, Corey put together some really nice written testimony against a bill about all the different security measures and limiting what schools could do, and what actually was more about what reporting we had to do if we were using different security measures. Other than that, Lisa, anything out of the legislative piece? I know you're meeting with your NASB group on a regular basis.
Yeah, I kind of wanted the board to get an idea of how that works. So Virgil will meet with GNSA on Fridays. That's Greater Nebraska School Association. So those are all the equalized districts. And then I meet with Nebraska Association of School Boards on Monday at 10, and we have that meeting every week, through while the unicameral's in session. And then GIPS, we all meet at noon. So we have all kind of that conglomeration of information, and we scheduled like that intentionally so that with NASB's meetings, then we know what we're going to be testifying on that week, what's coming up the following week. There's a lot of dirty pennies. Is it dirty penny? What do you say? Keeps coming back like an ugly penny? What is that saying? But anyway, there's a couple bills that keep coming back like a bad penny. That's what it is, a bad penny. And yeah, pennies aren't a thing anymore. Yeah. Anyway, it's just kind of disheartening. But, you work on this stuff, and then it still comes back and they don't listen to the voters. So that's very unfortunate. But just know that there's a lot of people that are watching this stuff, and if anybody's interested in learning more about it, I'm always happy. I love talking about it. There's something wrong with me. I love going to hearings. It's just all very fascinating to me. So if anybody's ever interested in learning more about it, I'm happy to talk about it. So thank you.
I believe that's all I had to report, so I'll answer any questions anyone happens to have. Otherwise, we can call it a night.
I guess I just wanted to add a quick thank you to Lincoln Elementary School and their Links leaders for sending us, what are they called? Thank you, school board members. So shout out to my alma mater there.
All right. Notification of upcoming board meetings.